Welcome to Module 2. From doing to leading, we're going to look at how we can take you from reactive firefighting into strategic leadership, which means letting go of the habits that got you here. In this module, we are going to look at why high performers get stuck in doing mode and what it costs. We'll look at the 3 levels of leadership: operational, tactical, and strategic. We'll look at the tactical to strategic grid. Where are you really spending your time? I'm going to share the QSAP model with you, 5 elements that shape how you lead. We'll talk about the balcony and the dance floor, 3 horizons, and what letting go actually looks like in practice. There is a lot there. There's a lot of me talking things through and a lot of reflecting and connecting with what we talked about in Module 1. Where are you? Where do you want to go? But also who you have been. And one of the things that we will talk about in this module is the things that have made us really successful, the things that have helped us to get that promotion, and how we need to evolve in our ways of working to help us to be great leaders. That's what we're covering in Module 2. So there's 7 areas. They are all connected. Keep your workbook open as we go through this workshop. Make some notes as you go. There is a reflection exercise at the end. And also, we will cover off your light bulb and your next steps ready for your reflection and turning that learning into action. Pause the video at any point. Take the time you need. And if you need to come back to any of the sections, then you can do. And if you've got questions, you know where I am to ask. So let's look at the doing trap. Now, we've got past versions of ourselves, we've got the present version of ourselves, and we've got the future version of ourselves, which is what we looked at in Module 1. Where are we? Where have we been? Where are we going? And looking at identity, we talked about evolution a little bit in Module 1. Most people get promoted because they are great at doing the job. They're great at getting things done. And that becomes part of their identity. They're somebody who has all of the knowledge, they've got the skills, they are somebody who is able to take action when it is needed. And the challenge is sometimes those things that have served us really well in roles that we've previously had can hold us back when we step into a leadership role. And there's a second level of evolution when we get promoted again in a similar way. And we'll talk about this in this workshop. When you get promoted into a more senior leader, we have to evolve again. What good looks like at one level and can be a huge asset to us can become a liability at that next level. Firstly, we need to increase our awareness. We need to be aware of what it is that we're doing and be aware of what is no longer useful to us. And then we can start to look at what we want to do instead and how we can start to take action for that to become our norm. There is a strong possibility the past version of you was great at getting things done. You were the fastest, you were most reliable, you were the one that had all of the answers, and these were assets. And they were probably one of the main reasons why you were promoted. You demonstrated that you were good at your job. What you need as a leader is a different skill set. And whilst some of it will transfer over, some of it you will leave with that past version of yourself. And that's what I want you to focus on in this module. What is no longer working for you that you are ready to leave behind, and what is still working that actually is still an asset in the role that you are in. And where you're recognizing that there are liabilities, we can look at how to move past that, leave it in that past version of you. And what does good look like at the level that you are now at? This is definitely not a criticism of who you have been. We know that that is what has made you successful. This is not a criticism. This is evolution. And it's your invitation to evolve. The fact that you are on this program tells me that you are ready to make some changes. That's what this module and future modules as well is going to help you with. There is a moment for all of us as leaders, I went through it myself, where you recognize that actually something that has worked really well for you isn't now working and it's time to do things differently. Whilst a lot of us do that by trial and error, this program is going to help you to make more conscious decisions and put those changes in place by choice rather than by getting it wrong and then trying to get it right. As the saying goes, if we always do what we always did, we'll always get what we always got. And we don't want to get what we've always got because we're in a different position now. We need things to be different. We need a different outcome. Therefore, we need to do things differently. You can keep doing what you've always done, or you can do something different to get somewhere new. And that choice is what this module is all about. The reflection question right now, something that I want you to think about is, what's the one habit or behavior that served you brilliantly in your previous role that you recognize is now starting to hold you back? It might be that you had all the answers. It might be that you were quick to fix. What did you pride yourself as being able to do? Maybe something that you attach to your identity. This is who I am. This is how people see me. And there's a big part of you that still wants to show up as that person. You're recognizing that whilst that had a positive impact in your last role, it is not having the same impact in your current role. Let's talk about the 3 levels of leadership. Different people use different names, different terminology. Ultimately, we are talking about the same thing. Now, I've pulled together this graphic. I've tried to run it through AI and come up with something that's a little bit more fancy. It doesn't seem to give the information in the same way. So whilst it's a little bit sketchy, I think it gets the point across really well. The 3 levels of leadership: operational, tactical, and strategic. What does this look like at each level? Now, operational leaders, their focus is execution. They are on the ground. Their focus is short term. Operational leaders, bottom of the mountain, focusing on short term tasks, activities, deliverables, and their focus is on execution. This is an operational leader. Then we have the middle management, tactical leaders. Now, their focus is medium term. They are halfway up the mountain. They have people reporting up to them, and they have more senior people allocating, delegating work back down. They have a position of responsibility. They are accountable. Their focus is medium term. They're very much around the tactical elements of that role. Their focus is on managing medium term. Then we have the top of the mountain. This is the strategic level. Now, here, standing at the top of the mountain, you've got 360-degree view. You can see all around you, you can see far, and you can see wide. And that is strategic leadership. You are thinking long term. So operational managers, short term, focused on execution. Tactical leadership is managing and is medium term. Strategic leadership is at the top. So the focus is on longer term, big picture thinking. Now, this means when you are problem solving as a leader at a strategic level, you are thinking not just how to resolve it in the moment, you are thinking how to resolve it longer term. You are looking at implementing processes. You're looking at policy. You're looking at your people, your culture, and your systems. Not only are you thinking about how to resolve it in the moment, you are looking at how to resolve it so that either it doesn't happen again or that you've got things in place to reduce or remove that risk. Your role at the top of the mountain is to look far and wide and into the future. It's very different to those who are further down the mountain. They have their role to play. Your role is at the top with the 360-degree view. You want to recognize where you are on the mountain and also where that next step is. Because as we grow and as we evolve, we want to be bridging the gap between us and that next level. If you are currently in an operational leadership role, then you'll want to start thinking about how you move into that medium term management. And if you are in a tactical role, you'll want to think how you can start to bridge that gap and start your thinking into that strategic level. The challenge for a lot of leaders is that despite having worked really hard to get further up the mountain, they find themselves getting drawn back down. And I've had conversation with somebody recently where, despite being at the top of the mountain in that strategic leadership role, they've got that 360-degree view. They have the accountability and the responsibility to be looking further ahead. They are finding that they are coming down the mountain to deal with the daily tasks, to deal with operational level leadership challenges. So there's two parts of this. Firstly is thinking about your own leadership and your leadership evolution, who you are now, who you want to be, and how you can start to move up and start thinking and behaving and responding at that next level. But also, if you are further up, make sure you are challenging yourself, that you are not coming back down the mountain to fix and resolve those other leadership level challenges. This is where we start to have conversations about where your time is actually going. Because if you are in a strategic leadership role, you do not want to be spending your time on operational leadership challenges, tasks, and activities. You don't want to be at the top to be coming down the mountain, back up, down the mountain, back up. So there's a challenge there to evolve your way up, and then also not to get pulled back down once you have got there. The shift starts once you start to really understand where your time is going, where your energy, your focus, and your attention is going. So first question is to think about where you are currently sitting. What role are you in on the mountain? And then which level are you spending most of your time in? Does it reflect the level that you are at? Does it reflect you working your way up the mountain? 3 levels of leadership. There will be times where, regardless of what situation we are in, we need to step into all 3 of those types of leadership. What we need to make sure is that we are spending the majority of our time in the right position on the mountain. There's a strong possibility that some of you, having looked at that last graphic, will be thinking that you are more tactical and you need to be more strategic. This graphic will help to explain a little bit more about how that needs to look and the steps that you can take to start to move from tactical leadership into strategic leadership. There is a sweet spot for impact in strategic leadership, and that is where you are hands off and thinking about the big picture. It's that gold square up in the top right hand corner. This is where you're leading strategic, hands off. You're focused on the big picture. You are empowering others to deliver. That's where you can create the greatest impact. Where a lot of people get stuck is in these other 3 squares. So if you look at the axis, we've got level of thinking on the vertical axis, and we've got level of involvement on the horizontal axis. Now, on the level of thinking, we've got tactical, short-term, medium focus, and then the big picture, long-term focus of strategic thinking, top of the mountain. On the horizontal axis, we've got hands-on and in the detail, and we've got hands-off, empowering others. If you're caught in that bottom left-hand square, you are tactical and hands-on, short to medium term thinking, and also very hands-on and in the detail. So you are very much doing in the detail, doing the work yourself, which means not only are you going to limit your own capacity, you're also preventing the growth of your team. So you are reducing their capability and their potential. Now, if you are still hands-on but able to think bigger picture, then your team may well describe you as getting in the way, because you're focused on the big picture, but still trying to control all of the details, which means they need to come to you for decisions. They need to come to you to check, because you're doing all of the thinking, but you're still trying to control the doing as well. This is also going to limit your team. We want to move you to the right hand box. So that thinking is great. Big picture thinking, longer term thinking, but you need to take your hands off of it and let your team do what your team are there to do. Now, the other fourth square is where you are tactical and hands off. You're hands off, so that's great. You're letting your team do their thing. There's trust there, the autonomy is there, the encouragement of self efficacy is there, but your thinking is still short to medium term. You're not thinking in the way that you could see everything from the top of the mountain. So it's very limited, and that's then going to restrict the actions that people take. This is an interesting grid. A lot of people will recognize, as soon as they see the grid, they'll recognize which square they are in and also where they need to be. Now, it might be, again, dependent on the position that you are in on the mountain. It might be that actually you are still in a more tactical leadership role, but you want to elevate into strategic leadership. I want you to think big picture focus, hands off, empower others. That is the goal. Being able to think long term, think far and wide, and then hands off, delegate, allocate, trust your team, give them those responsibilities to deliver. You are still accountable. You're going to give them that responsibility to do it in a way that makes it happen, and you are not getting in the way of that progress. I mentioned that I would share the Cousin model with you. These are 5 elements that shape how you lead. I'm going to talk through all 5. Got knowledge, understanding, skills, attitudes, and behaviors, all of which feed into how we lead. This is also why we talk in module 1 about your identity, because knowledge, skills, and understanding, you're going to be learning that on a daily basis through practice. The attitudes and behaviors, that's the mindset, that's the beliefs that you hold. That's what connects you to your identity as a leader. So knowledge, what you know about leadership, what you know about the organization, what you know about the team, and what you know about what is required for you in the role that you are in. Your roles, your responsibilities. What are you responsible for? What are you accountable for? What do you need to know to do a good job? Knowing something and understanding it well and understanding it well enough to use it can be 2 different things. And this is something that I will talk about again in other modules. We need to make sure that we have knowledge. We also need to make sure that we understand how to apply that knowledge. So, how you apply your knowledge in practice, how you interpret the information, how you connect different concepts, models, frameworks, how you bring it all together will be the difference that makes the difference to how you lead and how you lead effectively. Understanding how to apply the knowledge is what is key. Then we have skills, the practical capabilities that you bring into that role. Now, some of the things that you've done in the past will be transferable skills, and some of you will be learning skills in the here and now to help you to be able to do what you need to do. Your skills might be behavioral skills, they might be technical skills. And as a leader, I don't believe we're ever the finished article. You will always be looking to increase your knowledge, your understanding, and your skills. That's what makes a great leader. They are the elements that are easiest to develop. The attitudes and behaviors are where the real work is, but it's also what stands you out from other leaders. Your attitudes is how you approach your role, your team, challenges that you face. Your attitudes will shape your resilience. They will shape your level of empathy, how open you are, and how positive you are. Your attitudes are really important. That's what people remember about your leadership. They will barely remember what you knew or what skills you had. They'll remember how you responded to things and how they felt under your leadership. Your attitudes are really important, as are your behaviors. What do you actually do? How do you show up? How do you behave? How do other people experience being led by you? The habits, the actions that create psychological safety, the habits and actions that inspire trust. collaboration, feedback, challenge, and accountability. How safe do people feel? Are they confident and comfortable enough to offer different perspectives, to show you blind spots that they think you might have missed, and to give a different opinion, to share their knowledge, their understanding, and their skills in a meeting environment, in a discussion? Your behaviors and your attitudes are what shape your leadership, probably more so than the knowledge, understanding, and skills. This is why a lot of leadership positions will recruit to the attitudes and behaviors, because knowledge, understanding, and skills, they can be taught. They can be taught easily. They're very easy gaps to identify and therefore bridge. So these are the 5 elements that shape how you lead. And the question is whether or not your attitudes and behaviors have caught up with where you are currently positioned. You know that you've got promoted into that role because you've got the knowledge, the understanding, and the skills. The question is whether or not your attitudes and behaviors have developed and evolved into the position that you are now in. It's worth at this point thinking about what is strongest for you right now in the role that you're in. What feels the strongest out of these 5, and which one needs your attention? If you could upskill one of these 5 elements and bring it to where it needs to be for where you currently are, which of those 5 would it be? This is one of my favorite analogies. It's such a great visual. It's similar to the mountain, but I think this is such a great way to really picture where we are leading from. The question is, are you leading from the dance floor or are you leading from the balcony? So on the dance floor, you are in it. You're responding, you're reacting, you're moving with everything around you. It's close up, it's immediate, it is reactive. On the balcony, you can see a very different picture. You see the patterns, you see the dynamics, you see where things are heading. You have a much better visual. You are seeing things very differently to what the people on the dance floor can see. Great leaders move between the two. This is not telling you that you need to be up on the balcony, never to get back on the dance floor. Good leaders are able to move between the two. They recognize where they need to be able to lead well. Sometimes it is on the dance floor and sometimes it's on the balcony. The challenge, especially for newly promoted leaders, is they are so comfortable on the dance floor. They're so familiar with the dance floor. They don't make it to the balcony. They're too busy dancing. They know what to do on the dance floor. On the balcony, not so much. And so they stay where it is familiar. They stay where it is comfortable. Now, the minute I share this image with people, they recognize where they're spending their time in the week. They're on the dance floor. It's reactive. They're not able to have that clear picture of what's going on. They're in it and they're moving around. It's very, very fast paced. Where they need to be for a lot of the work that they are responsible for is on the balcony. Forward thinking, looking ahead, strategic planning, making sure they have their eye on all of the things that they are responsible for. Your job is to get up on the balcony regularly. Now, whether you schedule that in and protect that time to be able to do that, or whether you create that as part of your routine in your working week, you need to make sure that you have balcony time. If you have not been on the balcony recently, this is something to pay attention to. This is the challenge between being somebody who is very good at dancing, very familiar with being on the dance floor, still finds it fun because, let's be honest, that is where the fun happens. And actually, when we've been promoted from a job that we loved and that we've been very good at, it's going to be very tempting to be drawn back to the dance floor. We need to make sure that we get the balcony time in as well. So, reflection question for you. When did you last spend time on the balcony? And I want you to think about what is different. When you spend time on that balcony, what do you see? What feels different? What are you able to do that you are not able to do from the dance floor? It may also be worth asking yourself what feels uncomfortable about being on the balcony? Because we know the dance floor is familiar. We know you can do the dance floor. So what's uncomfortable about being on the balcony? Because sometimes avoidance of what is unfamiliar and uncomfortable is what keeps pulling us back down to the dance floor. The more time we spend on the balcony, the more familiar we get with being up there and how it feels and being able to do the work up there, that actually that becomes our comfort zone, and that becomes the place where we know we need to be, and we lead well from there. Ask yourself that question. When were you last up there? What could you see? What felt different? What did that enable? Onto the three horizons model. This brings together what we've been talking about with the mountain, with the dance floor and the balcony, in terms of your vision, in terms of where you are looking ahead. Got the operational, tactical, and strategic levels of leadership. And then we have how far you are looking into the horizon. We've got horizon one, which is the here and the now. Business as usual. This is the operational, day to day, what needs to be done. Then we've got the mid-term, so the near future, what's approaching, what's emerging. This is the tactical level. And then we've got that third horizon, which is looking much further into the future. This is where we are looking for those new paradigms that are coming through. This is the strategic level of vision. Horizon one, what do I need to do today? What are the current operations? What's current performance, current problems? What is happening right now? This is the bottom of the mountain. This is the dance floor. Horizon two, what do I need to build for tomorrow? What do I need my attention on that is coming up? What's emerging as an opportunity? What's emerging as a risk that I need to have my eye on? This will also be succession planning, developing capability. This will also be delegating to develop your team and increase their capacity and capability. It's going to be improving how you work. This is where you're on the balcony. You're starting to look that little bit further ahead. Horizon three is where you're heading. This is looking much further into the longer term. Future vision, future direction, setting the direction. This is the company in 3 to 5 years. This is for those that are the business owner, making sure that there is a business in 3 to 5 years, what that needs to look like, doing the things that need to be done to keep the business growing and evolving to meet demand so that it remains a successful business in the longer future. This is definitely the view from the balcony. And if you are in that position, you don't want to be on the dance floor or at the bottom of the mountain dealing with the here and now. Because if that is where your focus is, you are not looking far enough ahead to make sure that there is a future to move into. Now, what I love about this model is that really good strategic leaders are able to move through all three of these simultaneously. They're not ignoring horizon one, they're managing it. And they're trusting their operational leaders to manage it. They're also protecting time for horizon two and horizon three. And dependent on the structure and how many people you have in those different level of leadership will depend on whether you're trusting and delegating or whether you are also covering those elements of leadership. It is incredibly easy to get drawn into horizon one because it's happening. It's happening now. That's what you feel you need to jump in and deal with. If you are at a more senior position, you need to recognize and remember that whilst you might be required to come up with a solution, you don't need to apply the solution. You need to trust your teams to do what needs to be done. So whilst you might give an instruction, you might give direction, you are trusting your teams to do what needs to be done. You are trusting your operational and tactical leaders to manage and lead people through what needs to be done. Your time is being protected for that horizon three into the far future. Recognizing that as much as you need to make sure that the far future happens, that the here, the now, and the near future also needs to be protected. Great leader will move between all three. and recognize who is responsible and who is accountable, and being able to trust and empower people in those other positions to hold the bulk of that responsibility, recognizing that they are still accountable for all three of those horizons. If you think about your own leadership position, what percentage of your week is being spent in each horizon? Now, you may not have any strategic responsibility within the role that you are in. It is still worth thinking about what that would look like. Even as a tactical leader, you need that strategic awareness. For you to be able to protect the here and now and that near future, you need to know what the future vision is. You need to know what the direction is, and you need to be able to flag upwards. So whilst you might have a position that means that actually your responsibility is keeping an eye on Horizon 1 and Horizon 2, knowing what Horizon 3 is, and being able to flag and raise that awareness up is incredibly important. Think about where your time is going, think about where it needs to go, and what needs to change to make that happen. There's a great book by an American coach called Marshall Goldsmith, and the title of the book is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Definitely worth a read if you are someone who is looking to explore this a little bit further. In this module, we're linking back into the identity that we explored in module 1. And then we are choosing which parts of who you are to lead from and which to step back from. Your identity is evolving. How you see yourself, how you want to see yourself leading, will be linked in to who you've been in the past. If you've built a professional reputation on being the one with all the answers, getting everything done, being everywhere, being all the things to all the people, there's going to be parts of those that you need to let go to be a great leader. What do you need to step back from? Do you need to step back from being the one with all the answers? Do you need to step back from fixing and solving problems that other people can solve and actually other people might be better placed to solve? Do you need to step back from needing to be in every meeting? Do you need to be there? Or doing it yourself because it's faster? That's probably one of the most common ones. I also want you to think about how you measure your value. You will have measured your value in different ways, in different roles. I want you to think about how you measure your value in this leadership role. It's not going to be about busyness. I promise you, it's not going to be about how busy you are. So we need to shift that identity. We need to shift how you see yourself. And then we need to think about what you want to let go of and what you want to step into. So what's one thing that is holding you back that you need to let go of for you to be able to move forward? And if you are holding on to it, what's stopping you from letting go? This is part of the evolution. If you look back at module 1, who did you say you wanted to be in the future? This future version of you, this future leader that you want to be. What do you need to let go of? What skin do you need to shed for you to be able to evolve into this leader? This is genuinely difficult. I'm not going to play it down. This is probably one of the most common conversations I have in coaching sessions. It's difficult to let go because our brain has registered that this is something that's worked really well for us. So that part of our brain that stores all of our memories and all of our experiences is saying, don't let go of that because that's always worked well for us. We're successful because of that. That's who we are. That's how we are seen. That's how people see us. That's the reputation that we have. If you stop going to meetings, what are people going to think? There's a fear of judgment, fear of failure. What happens if you don't go to a meeting and a decision is made and you're not there? Or a question is answered and you're not there? What happens when somebody comes and asks you a question and instead of telling them the answer, you ask them coaching questions to guide them through it? What if they then judge you as somebody who doesn't know? How do you feel about that? So there's always a fear of failure, fear of judgment. We are holding on, self-preservation, self-protection. And these are habits and behaviors and an identity that has served us really well. So it is going to be hard to let go of. We have to try something different to prove ourselves that nothing bad happens. Okay. We have to not go to that meeting to prove ourselves that nothing bad happens. We have to ask our team coaching questions to prove to ourselves that actually our team can go and work it out. We can support them in a different way. What does helpful look like at this level? What does good look like at this level? What does success look like at this level? If you've spent years building a professional reputation on some of these things, it is going to be hard to let it go. And this is why we looked at what you want your professional reputation to be in the first module, so that we can start to lean into the habits and the behaviors that will build that identity, that will help people to see us as we want to be seen, not as we've been seen before. So the big question: what are you holding on to? What do you need to let go of? And what is stopping you? The title of this module was to move you from doing into leading. What does that actually look like? Doing, solving the problem yourself, attending every meeting, literally what we've just been talking about, answering every question, measuring your value by how busy you are, and doing it yourself because it's faster. These are all doing. It's not leading, it's doing. What does it look like as leading? You're not solving the problem yourself. What are you doing instead? You're asking the question that helps that individual to solve it. If you're not in every meeting, you're being selective about where your presence adds value. You're asking questions about why you're needed in that meeting. What do they need from you? Do you need to be there? If you're not answering every question, you're creating the conditions where others can find the answers. You're giving them the confidence to go and find the answers in different places. You're helping them to develop the questions, the decision making. And as I mentioned before, how you measure your value needs to change. Think about the role that you are in. What does good look like? What does success look like? How will you measure how you're adding value? Because it's not answering questions, getting things done, and being the go-to person. It's going to look different at the level you are now at. So I want you to think about, what does that look like and how do you measure that value? And yes, we know it's quicker for you to do it. We know that this is the biggest challenge. We know it's quicker for you to do it because you have mastered it. If you've already mastered it, then how can you pass on that skill to somebody else? Yes, it takes a little bit longer in the short term, but longer term, you are building somebody else's capability. They don't need to keep coming back to you, and they are becoming more confident, more self-sufficient, more resilient. You're investing in that individual. They don't need to come to you. So, yeah, it's faster. In the moment, short term, absolutely. Can't argue with that. But long term, it is going to slow you down. If you've got everybody coming to you, if you have to do things for everybody, it is going to slow you down. So we want to think longer term. Leadership is answering less questions and asking more. Coaching your teams helps to build their capability, their ability, their confidence, and helps them to reach their full potential. A great leader creates leaders. That's a measure. That's a measure of impact. How confident your team is becoming, how self-sufficient your team is becoming, how engaged they are, how safe they feel to try something that is different, make decisions, take action. That's a measure. And that's the shift. It's not working less. You're doing less. You are leading others to be able to do more. That's the shift. That's what we're working on. So are you leading or are you doing? The future version of you is all leading. So which ones are you still doing and how can you start to shift that into leading? And dependent on what other actions you want to take as you work through this module, I want you to think of one of these that you can focus on over the next couple of weeks, where you know that you are doing. How can you shift it to leading? Just pick one to work on. Where are you now? And where do you want to be? And what is the gap in the middle? Come back to your workbook to think about your current reality against where you want to be. Where are you right now? On the mountain. Where are you spending your time? You on the dance floor or on the balcony? Where are you in that grid? What horizon are you spending time focusing on? And what's one habit you are ready to start letting go of? And as we've just said, how are you going to shift away from the doing into leading? There's been a lot in this module. There's a lot to take from it. We are taking the learning and turning it into action. You can hit the pause on the video now to sit and reflect on what actions you want to take from everything that you've been learning. And a lot of it all fits in together really nicely. Take some time to answer the questions that are on the slide. Give yourself time to digest what you've been learning and what's been coming up for you as you've been watching me talk through the different models and the different analogies, and think about where you are and where you want to be. This is not one to rush. The clearer you are on the next steps, the more purposeful and intentional you will be when you take them. Time to take the learning and turn it into action. I'm looking forward to hearing what has come up for you, what your observations have been, what your thoughts have been, and what your commitment will be. What will your next steps be? Now you know what you know. What are you going to take away and do differently? Remember, keep it small, keep it simple, and keep it specific. Think about where you can apply this next step. Where will you take this action? Remember, it's not a complete transformation. Looking at small steps of action that will start you to move forward to where you want to go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. No question too small. Nothing's off limits. Ask away. And I will see you very soon.